I'm going to blow up. I'm going to lose my shit. And I'm going to all of a sudden, and then, again, one of my new favorite phrases, because it fits me to a T, I start running my escape fantasy, right? How do I escape from life, right? And I mean it. I still have an escape fantasy. Mine doesn't include alcohol anymore or drugs, but it includes just getting away. The way I put it into words when I talk about it is packing up my car, going up to New Hampshire, getting a cabin somewhere, and just live in the woods where I can do some hiking with my dog. Just get away from the world.
Welcome to the Sober Friends podcast. My name is Matt J. and Steve is over there. What do? We talk about sobriety. We talk about the things that got us sober. Sometimes we talk about the things that kept us out there for too long. So if you have a burning desire to way out of the bottle, I think that you are in the right place. Steve, what is going on with you?
Good Sunday morning, Matt. It's a beautiful day up here in Connecticut. You won't hear this on Sunday because that's not when Matt drops it. But yeah, it's a beautiful morning, and I can't wait to get outside. And it's going to be a little cool, but nice for this area. Beautiful
sunny
sunshine.
And dry is fine.
Yep. So that's all good for me too. So all good here, Matt.
Great. Well, I think I'm okay now. We've had some things going on. You didn't see the break, but my daughters had some health issues. They both popped their knees in and out, doing the same thing, playing soccer. And I've been tapering off of medicine. So I've been tapering off venlafaxine, which is known as Effexor. The highest that I was at was 300 milligrams, which is sort of a max dose. And I was on this thing for probably over 10 years. And the reason I didn't get rid of the medication earlier was because of the withdrawal symptoms. So I've been tapering a little bit at a time, and I think I'm at like 6 months of a taper, and I'm sort of at the last place. And even though I'm dropping 37.5 milligrams every single time, that becomes a bigger percentage of the medication drop. So you feel it more. And this medicine also has a very short half-life. So you feel those withdrawal symptoms faster. And the first week or so of the taper each month has been tough on me. This last one, where I've gone from 75 to 37.5, has been the roughest, especially that first week, which I'm going to tell you all stuff that we talk about in recovery. When I was feeling the things that I was feeling, it felt like connection is futile, that nobody's able to help me. Even though I was feeling some awful things, they felt real. And there are times that I wanted that it would dictate, reach out to somebody and say hello and tell them what you're going through. And whatever it is with this taper, it feels like I don't want to talk to anybody because it just won't make a difference. I am past that point now. It's been 2 or 3 weeks, but it was a really crappy first week. And I think people can identify with that. I'm feeling something in my recovery, and yet I'm not calling anybody because I just don't think it feels futile.
Yeah. A couple things there that just jump out at me. The first thing is that one of the things that I struggle with, I think a lot of us in recovery struggle with, is how we deal with our feelings and how we recognize them and what we do with them, right? And I still struggle with this, right? I haven't mastered the art of understanding that my feelings are just that, right? They're feelings. They're something that I really can't control, right? I mean, I can't control how I feel. I can control how I react to my feelings. And that takes a lot. I mean, for this alcoholic. Now, some people do this naturally very well. I struggle with it a lot. I struggle with a lot. And I too have some of these, I don't know if I would call it doomsday feelings, but like when I get some of these certain feelings, the things that bother me most, I don't typically share about them. I go, I don't want to be a whiner. You know, I mean, I go through the whole litany of stuff of why I don't want to talk about it. And what that does, it's one of those things that we are told every single time we go into a meeting. If you go to enough meetings, if you listen to enough people sharing about their stuff, what we're doing is we're isolating ourselves from something that will help us, right? And again, it's a natural thing, I think, for a lot of us who drank to isolate ourselves. So it's this whole snowball effect of I don't want to share about it. Nope, and you're right. Nobody's going to help me. And again, here's what I have learned, and I do a pretty good job with it. I understand that nobody's going to have a solution for me, but I feel better talking about it, right? I mean, that's just the truth. I feel better talking about it. And I've learned that, which is why when I go to a meeting, I tell people all the time, like, I put my stuff out in the meeting. I'm very open. I mean, I don't, there's stuff I don't share about in meetings. But I put a lot of stuff out there so that the people in my regular groups know where I'm at and they know how I'm feeling. And I do that. And I did it Friday night. I had my Friday night men's meeting just a couple nights ago, and I had some stuff on my mind, and I talk about it, and I put it out there. And I even put out some stuff. As a matter of fact, I shared Friday night that I started a GLP-1 medicine, right? Yep. And this is a men's meeting, and I had a bunch of guys look at me, right? Like, you could just see, like, well, first of all, like, looking probably like, oh, you don't need that, all that same stuff. And again, that was just me, doesn't mean that that's what they were thinking. That's what I was feeling, right? But I also put it out there for a reason, right? Because I know some other guys. There's some guys at that meeting. We talk about how our weight, we struggle with that kind of stuff. I put it out there so that guys who maybe thought about it know that I'm doing it and they can talk to me about it, right? That's one of the reasons why I finally did it, right? After about 2.5 months on this stuff. So now they know if somebody wants to come up, hey, can I ask you about that? They know. They can ask me. I don't need to talk about it. But, I put it out there. And there was a reason why I put it out there, because it does help me with some of my other cravings, right? I mean, there's the whole talk about that whole thing of alcohol cravings and stuff like that. And it's not just that it's that whole reward center that it sort of draws it back some. Anyway, well, but when I get those feelings and I don't want to talk about it, it's one of those things where I think I have to talk about this stuff, all right? The other thing that I hear about day in and day out, mostly at my men's meeting, but also at my other meetings, is that for me to really stay sober and have my best life possible, I have to do things I don't want to do, which is also talk about stuff, right? So I really have to work on some of that stuff. So that's what jumped out at me, is like, yeah, I get it. We don't want to talk about it. But the truth is, our program demands that we talk about it. It really does. It demands that we talk about it. And I think, and you and I have talked about this. We've talked about this we're sort of in the same boat with we have a sponsor. If somebody asks me, yeah, there's a name we put out there, but we don't use it. We don't use our sponsor as much as we should. Not that we don't use other people. And that's been weighing on my mind. And I think that's one of the things. And I think that's one of the different things about people who really are working a good program. Like, they have a sponsor, they talk to their sponsor, they do all that kind of work. And I look at those people and I go, yeah, I need to be better in that part of my program, right? Because the truth is, that's going to help me. And I've really thought about this over the last few days, because I've had some of my own shit going on, is that, like, I need to reach out to my so-called sponsor and just, and he's a nice guy and all, just say, hey, let's get together for coffee, for lunch, for breakfast, and just to touch base with that a little bit, because he's just retired in the past year. I'm flexible enough that we can meet anytime during the day. So it's something that's probably beyond. And I thought about it yesterday. I meant to call him yesterday, and I just didn't. And I think I'm going to call him after I get done here, and just don't know if he'll pick up, but just put a message in there and say, hey, let's get together for some coffee and stuff, because that will help me start sharing stuff that I don't know where to share it, right? Just share it to another alcoholic. So that's what jumped out at me when you shared your stuff, and how, again, I think as alcoholics, a lot of times we head down that isolation path, which is a little bit scary for us, because that's I know for me it is. That's when I start thinking, oh, I could do this and nobody will know. I can do this and nobody will, or worst case, I can do this and nobody will care, right? Nobody will care.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing Mitzi, our friend who supports our show monetarily every single month, screaming with her earphones and saying, where in the program is this? Why are you complaining as opposed to tying in the program? And I don't like thinking that way, because I know Mitzi's right. And I think, well, let me ask this. Where do you think stepwise this falls? Is this step 9 repeated, or is there somewhere else that this type of stuff would fall?
I actually think it's probably more of a step 4 or 5, right? I mean,
yeah,
we're doing some avoiding stuff going on there. I don't want to talk about it. Nobody's going to be able to help me with it. That's where I think you got to start thinking, well, when you start digging into it, like, why do we feel that way? Why do I feel that way? Why do I tell, this is it. Why do I tell every other alcoholic who ever says, I don't want to call people because I feel like I'm whining, don't worry about it. Because when you call somebody, it gives them, you're helping them too. Why do I tell every other alcoholic that, yet I fall into that same trap myself? Right? That's just human nature. And again, some people do it better than others and all that kind of stuff. But, that's the nature for me. That's the nature of this disease. And I guess it's all not disease. Some of it's just my personality. But my personality led me to a place where I thought alcohol was my solution. So it's all tied into me, for me personally. For me personally, it's all tied in. Like, born this way, whatever the deal on how I got there, I have these characteristics, and they're not all defects. They're just, just who I am, where I feel some of these things. And I'm able to reach out to other people and tell them, call me anytime. And I truly mean it. Call me anytime you want, and I'll help you as much as I can. Yet I'm still reluctant to apply those same principles to myself. I don't know why. All right, and maybe I do know why. Maybe it's because I'm not using my sponsor the way I should. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. I guess I'd have to do some work on that myself. But it's easy when we're going, like you and I, we live the same. We talk about it like we're not thinking about picking up a drink. We're not thinking about going out there. So it's easy to brush some of these things off. But the truth is, if we want the best quality life for ourselves and for the people we love, then there's work to be done. There's work to be done. And I'm very much aware of that. Like, I'm very much aware that, like, when I'm doing work on myself, it's not only benefiting me, but it's benefiting the people around me, mostly my wife, right? Because she spends the most time with me. But it's benefiting the people I care most about, because it's putting me in a better situation where I'm not as reactive. I'm not as touchy. I'm not all those things. So if I'm ignoring my feelings, if I'm not talking about it, eventually I'm just tell you again, this is me. I'm going to blow up. I'm going to lose my shit. And I'm going to all of a sudden, and then again, one of my new favorite phrases, because it fits me to a T, I start running my escape fantasy, right? How do I escape from life, right? And I mean it. I still have an escape fantasy. Mine doesn't include alcohol anymore or drugs, but it includes just getting away. The way I put it into words when I talk about it is packing up my car, going up to New Hampshire, getting a cabin somewhere, and just live in the woods where I can do some hiking with my dog, like just get away from the world, right?
Yep.
And that's a real fantasy that I run through every time my life starts feeling stressed. Like, I want to get the fuck out of here, and I just want to go, and I don't want any of the responsibility. Now, the truth is, I don't want any of that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I want to be by my family. I want to be by my grandchildren. I want to be by all these things. That's the truth. but that fantasy runs often in my head that I just want to get up and walk away from everything.
Yeah, the escape of reality type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had what prompted this is, I think it was 2 weeks ago. It might have been a little bit longer, that we were coming back from soccer and there were some things going on with the kids that they were driving me nuts. And I was using as much emotional intelligence as possible not to snap. And I was getting snappy at night because my daughter, who has ADHD and struggles with putting things away, put her cell phone on the van. I didn't know the cell phone was on the van, so I took off to go somewhere and it went flying, and they found a way at the end of the street and the display was smashed. And I was not happy. And it led to a discussion with my wife where she was saying something along the lines of, we understand that you've been tapering off this medication for 6 months. It has been difficult for everyone. I heard it as, we have been dealing with you for 6 months in this state. And it was a gut punch. Yeah. And I couldn't get past it. It hurt as much in that moment. It hurt as much like 6 hours later as it did in the moment. Yeah. And that's the medication taper. That's not me. The chemical thing. But it's hard to decipher that when you're feeling the emotions, that the emotions are not real. It's that the chemicals in the brain are not balanced the right way, and that they will right size, but they won't in the moment. So you have to feel this pain that is not reality. And that's very hard. And in the end, I did what I do well as I got to work. And I grabbed her phone, and she's crying and stuff. I grabbed her phone. It took me forever to figure out how she was logged into Duolingo, because she had a 450-day, this is a 12-year-old girl, 450-day streak of learning German. And she didn't want to lose her streak. And it took me forever to figure out where was the login. And it was one of these things where you log in with your Apple ID on the app, but that option is not available on the web.
Right.
So it took me forever, and I figured that out. And then I figured out the insurance we have through our carrier. But I had to go through like a bot and then chat with somebody, because in the end, I just wanted to go to the Apple store and get it fixed.
Yeah.
And I had to go through a path to get there. And then I finally got there. And then we went to the Apple store, and they were great. And they were able to fix everything with no cost. So this smashed up iPhone is fine. So in the end, it was fine. It usually always is fine in the end if you can just be patient and play it out. But to me, in that moment, it was a catastrophe. And I think it's so hard for a lot of us that we don't have patience. I don't have patience in the moment. And this is one of the reasons there's a lot of people with ADHD who have a propensity towards alcoholism. That lack of patience, being stuck in the moment. And that pain in the moment, that even though if I zoom out, this will come to its logical conclusion. Everything is fine. Nobody has any reason to be upset, but it doesn't change how I feel in the moment.
Yeah. Listen, it's hard. Life is hard. We talk about it all the time. Like, again, these feelings are, I haven't mastered it. Yeah, I'll be 68 years old, and I've got, I've got a decade and a half of a pretty decent sobriety, and I still haven't mastered it. I still have not mastered that. I call it the roller coaster of emotions. I do. Like, and again, one of the things that happens to me, and it just happened this week, is expectations over what really happens. Like, you have an expectation of something coming on, and then the reality or whatever it is that doesn't meet the expectations, and that emotional drop still gets me. I mean, it still just really just devastates me at times, and it's hard. And here's the thing, I give myself some credit for. Like, I don't overreact like that. I used to lose my shit and overreact to that. I don't do that anymore. But I still struggle with it big time. And but I'm able to get through it, and then I'm able to have conversations about it much more quickly. And so there's a lot of really good stuff. I don't want anybody out there thinking that, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, there's a lot of good stuff happening in my program, in my life, because of my program. But it's still hard. Like I said, and like that gut punch you talked about when somebody says something, and even if it's not meant that way, that you perceive it that way, oh man, it's really, really tough. I just want to tell a very short story. There's a guy at Friday night meeting young guy, when I say young, he's in his 40s, who shared that he had a blockage in his sewage pipe, right? And if you know what that means stuff is backing up. Right. So he came in, he was really stressed out. And he had called up a company that everybody knows. It's a company in Connecticut. And they just overcharge everybody. And we were teasing, all the guys, they were teasing him like, oh, you can't pay. So anyway, I've had this problem. I remember. Yeah, and several times, and I have all the people that he needed. So I told him, like, here's who you want to call, boom, boom, boom. And then he's like, and so he gets a quote that it's going to cost him $30,000 to fix this problem. Oh my God. And I'm like, first of all, it's not going to cost you $30,000, right? That company. So finally, I said to him, I'm like, listen, here's who you got to call. There's a guy out there who did my drain before I had it fixed. I finally bit the bullet and had it all fixed. And he's good. And like, here's who you got to call. You got to call this guy up. You're going to spend a few $100s, and he's going to tell you what the problem is. He's going to tell you if your sewer is collapsed and you need a whole new connection or whatever. Long story short, and then he had some money problems. So I'm like, I'm going to tell you, call up this guy. And this is not about me. I mean this. I said, call up this guy, and you tell him to come over there, and I'll take care. And then we'll work out the payment, right? So yesterday, I'm out hiking. He calls me, and I tell him this. I'm like, call up this guy. And he calls up the guy, and the guy's coming over last night. And he calls me up. Finally, he calls me about 7 o'clock, and he goes, I can't believe it, right? This guy fixed the problem. The point is, this guy fixed the problem for a few $100s versus what this other company was telling him $30,000 to fix it, right? And it was that stress, right? That whole stress. This kid was so stressed. He didn't have $30,000 to fix it. Was this whole stress. But the point is, he talked about it, and I told him after he called me, I was like, listen, you shared it. You found someone within me who had the same experience and was able to help you, right? And I said, if you don't share that stuff, how do I know that you need help, right? And this is a little bit what we're talking about. If we don't talk about this stuff, if we don't share it with somebody, then how do we know that there's not a person out there who can help us with it? So that's the thing. And again, I still, at this point, Mike, just like you, like, oh no, I won't talk about it. I won't call anybody. I won't call my buddy Edson again and tell him, because it's the same story, right? And plus, I may not want to hear what Edson's going to tell me because
that's what I'm thinking. I don't want to talk to Edson because I don't want to hear what Edson's going to say.
Right, because I know he's going to tell me the truth, and he's probably going to tell me some stuff that I need to do, but I'm not going to want to do it, right? So, so why would I want to call Edson when, even though that would help me out,
Yeah, I really think that that was not exactly how I was feeling in the moment when I didn't want to talk to people. It was regardless of what they say. Yeah, what they say is not going to help me in any way. It's going to be inert. That's the best way to describe it. And that's how I know in that moment that this is a chemical thing, because that's not how my normal thought process is. Talking to somebody usually is helpful, at least to get it off of my chest. But in these cases, it is, I don't want to talk to people because it's not that I'm going to hurt their feelings or bother them. It's just, it will make no difference one way or the other. So why expend the energy? And that's a very dark place for me to be. I was there a couple months ago. Something happened, and I realized this is the taper. It dawned on me, like, this is the taper that's talking. This is not, because it's a thought process I usually don't have. So what's different? I still felt the way I felt, but it still was the feeling that I was feeling. I was at Monday night feeling this way, and I didn't share about it because it was just like, I'm going to go to this meeting and I'm going to gut it through.
Right.
because I don't want to talk to anybody about this. It's not that I don't want their help. I don't want to talk about this. It will make no difference. So I'll focus elsewhere. And at least I got it out going. But it still sucked.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about something that's medication driven, stuff like that, it is different. There's no question about it. It is different because there is a chemical change, but there's also a chemical change in depressions and all that kind of stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we have, right, regardless if you're on meds, like sometimes those chemical imbalances, that's what it is, right? When you're faced with all this stuff. My point is those are still, to me, at least from my point of view, and I don't suffer from anything like clinical depression, so I don't want to be suggesting that somehow this applies to people with clinical depression and have some real issues, but I still believe those are lies that we tell ourselves, even if they're chemical. Those are lies. Like we're telling ourselves that not talking about it is not going to help. That it's going to be inert, right? That's what you said.
Mm-hmm.
But this is my whole point. Is I find that, and I have those thoughts too. But it's not inert. When I talk about it, I feel better, right? Same thing. When I go to a meeting and I talk about my stuff, I feel better, whether I think it's going to make me feel better or not, so that I know the action of talking about it. Yeah, nobody's going to fix it. I know that for the most part. Like when I share my stuff, I'm not looking for somebody to fix me or give me answers. Or if I am, I ask for that help. Mm-hmm. If anybody knows how to, fix this problem, please let me know. But most of the time, I just need to talk about it, right? And I don't do therapy. I don't do private therapy. I don't have a therapist. Some of this stuff, if I did, I'd be sharing with a therapist. I choose to share most of my stuff at my meetings, my regular meetings, and that's how I do it, right? I mean, I share, and typically I'm like, all right, I feel better. I just dumped a bunch of shit. I feel better about it. So sometimes that's all I need. And other times I need some action, and then it becomes, am I willing to take the action needed? And that's part of our program. Am I willing to take the action I need to take, or am I not? And I get to make that choice as a almost 68-year-old human being.
Boy, that's the hardest part, is taking the action that I know I need to take.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a tough one. I mention this and I share these stories. I hope you can thread the needle, not because I want to bitch and moan and show that this stuff is hopeless. Use my example. I'm giving you a real life example. I've been sober 12 years. And I have these issues and I haven't had it figured out yet. Haven't had it figured out perfectly. So don't do these things. And I want you to identify with these feelings so that you can avoid a path I took and do it a little bit better. And also by me saying it out loud, that's going to help me going forward. Because I got one last step. The one last step on this taper is 37.5 to 0. And so that's not a 50% reduction. That's a 100% reduction.
Right. Yeah.
That may be very challenging. So maybe what do I need to do to prepare for that? What's going to be my plan there? Do I need to have a check-in plan with people, even if I feel nothing's going wrong?
Yeah. Right. Do you need to have a plan? Hey, I'm gonna be reaching out, right? Letting people know. I'm gonna be reaching out during the day because I got this going on. And again, that's what we talk about. Let people know that if you call, they're going to pick up. Not that most people wouldn't, but if you tell people I got something going on and I'm going to reach out, then they're more apt to pick up, even if it's an inconvenient time, right? Because, it's just the way it all works. And again, but it's hard. It's hard for some of us. It's hard to do all that stuff. It's hard not to think that we're not burdens, all the things we've talked about today. And like I said, taking the action that we need is sometimes really, really hard. So That's why we keep working the program. I mean, that's why we do this. I mean it. That's why we show up and we do this podcast so we can work through this stuff. That's why we go to meetings so we can do this stuff. I say it all the time. It's the only way I know, me personally, how to keep myself going in the right direction. If I stop doing this, and this podcast is part of it. I mean that. If I stop doing this, if I start saying, I don't need to do the podcast anymore. I've done it for a couple of years now. It's time for, then, I don't need to do a meeting. If I start going down that road, my life becomes unmanageable.
Yep. And
when my life becomes unmanageable, I need a solution to dull that pain. And, and that for so long of my life, for a good portion of my life, that solution was alcohol. And now today I know I can't do that. So I need to have other solutions. And so it works. So why change it? Right. That's what I always say. It works. Why change it? Last thing I'll say about this subject is I follow this guy who's really an NA guy on social media. And I love him just the way he talks. And he talks about how he spent so much time in his life chasing his high, his drug, his alcohol, and he goes, and when I came to the rooms, he goes, somebody told me that I had to spend an hour a day. He was talking about like going to a meeting every day, and I was like, oh no, that's too much. I'm not going to do that, right? And he goes, I spent 24/7, trying to stay drunk or high or whatever. And then I get to the rooms and people tell me that I have to spend an hour a week or that I have to talk to somebody, right?
Yep.
And he goes through this whole
barrier.
thing. Right. He talks this whole thing, how people taught him how to pop the security tax and how to steal clothing and how to steal food. I had all these people taught me how to do that. I was okay with that. But now you're telling me I have to ask somebody to teach me how to live properly. And I'm saying, no, that's too much. I won't do that. When I see that, I'm like, ooh, I have to remember that, right? That I have to be teachable. I have to allow people to help me. I have to remember that this is the kind of medicine that I need on a regular basis in order for me to stay healthy. And I'm grateful for that. I do. I wake up grateful all the time because I have that. And until something changes, nothing will change. So I want to keep doing this because, like I said, I love my life. And even though I still have escape fantasies, I know deep down in my heart it's not what I want out of my life.
I hope this lands for you. And if it does, we would love to hear from you, Matt at SoberFriendsPod.com and SoberFriendsPod.com. Thanks, Steve, for letting me get a little of this stuff that I felt inert off my chest. It was helpful.
You're welcome, Matt.
We'll see everybody next week. Bye, everybody.